on Discord.
Greetings, Commanders, and welcome to episode 301 of Lave Radio, the show that likes to talk about the universe of Leet and the fantastic community that surrounds it. I'm your host, Commander Phoenix Defire, Chief Archivist of Lave Station, otherwise known as Colin Ford, and joining me in the Orange Sidewinder Bar for this episode, we have our Head of Health and Safety, Commander Edelweiss, that's Ben Mosswoodwood.
Hello, I'm just working out why I've gone off a muted grant accidentally. It's probably something personal because he went off and called me a willy face or something.
Okay, we have our Inhuman Resources Director, Commander Shan.
Hello.
We have our Deputy Trade Attaché, Commander Souverain.
What up?
We also have with us is our Chief Bar Steward doing tech. That is Grant Psycho Cow Wilcott.
Hello! And yeah, he muted me during the LaveCon broadcast because on Discord I was broadcasting the full show. He's just a muppet. But he can't hear me, so that's even better. Ben's a poo-poo head, Ben is a poo-poo head.
Oh no, that is unfair to poo-poo heads everywhere.
Oi!
Also joining us, we have our ever-reliable Mack Winston from the EIC.
Hello, good evening.
That makes Mac sound really boring. If you say someone's reliable,
Yes.
it's kind of like saying they've got no other beneficial features or attributes. They're just reliable.
Okay, for a question out to the chat room then, if you can think of a more proactive way to describe Mac Winston, please put it in the chat and we'll read it out.
I would describe Mac as being
dashing.
Nice.
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 Wow.
Fucking hell. Nearly as bad as boring or annoying.
Generically pleasing.
Hirsute.
You'll be calling me Nigel next.
Oh, is that the latest? Is that like a male Karen?
Oh no, Nigels are the opposite of Karens.
All right, okay. Nothing to do with the lovely Karen that does LaveCon. We'll just point that out right now. This is a different type of Karen. Anyway,
isn't a Kevin a Karen? Isn't a Kevin a male Karen?
I thought it was a Carl.
Is it not a Darren?
I don't know.
I thought Kevin was somebody from Birmingham who wore like stripy socks and things.
Kevin is the teenager from Harry Enfield, isn't he?
That too, yeah.
Which is why I kind of feel, that Kevin he's a bit of a Karen, really.
Really?
It was always Kevin and Tracy.
Yeah, but Tracy's not a Karen.
No, quite. Tracy's quite different to a Karen.
Anyway.
Meanwhile,
Tracy then.
Meanwhile, if you wish, we are hanging out in game somewhere. Probably near the orange side of the bar on Planet Lave. But if you can't get to us in game, you can join us in the Twitch chat channel, which you can access through laveradio.com/live and click on the live chat, or just go straight to twitch.tv/Lave Radio. So before we all get in the branched line to Tangent Town again, let's see what everybody's been up to. Souverain, how have you been and what have you been doing?
Hi, I've been good. I've been fine. Sleeping much better of late, and we are well on the way to finding a house to move into. Listeners paying attention will know that I've been busy viewing lots of flats of late because the Suvette and I are thinking of moving house, and we think we found what we want. We've come across a small independent developer who buys up houses in South London and does them up and sells them off into apartments to a really, really nice finish and a really nice and a really high standard. And I have a thing for new builds and high spec sort of all the mod cons that you get with a new build, like proper soundproofing and good double glazing and bifold doors and all that sort of thing. And and because we'd be buying it off plan, we'd get a bit of a discount off. Well, not a discount per se, but we'd be buying it for slightly cheaper than we would if it was on the open market. And it's got the right amount of bedrooms, and it's split level, which is characterful, I reckon. And I'd have my own little office, and it would be brilliant. So we've sort of provisionally got ourselves reserved on that as of today, which is exciting. Which means that if it all continues to go well, I will not need to spend every waking minute traipsing around flats in South London, which is super exciting.
But instead, you'll be talking to everyone about house prices and mortgages and.
Yes, yeah. Well, yeah. I remember when I first bought my flat about 5 years ago. I remember that my friends and I were all at a similar stage, and we had some very boring conversations. And then we all got over it when we realised that actually that stuff is incredibly boring. So so hopefully we won't. And now everybody's obviously buying sort of, you know, they've all got over the fact that yes, they're grown-ups and yes, they can buy flats. So they are. So hopefully we shall find other things to talk about. But luckily it is only down the road. It's sort of half a mile away. So it's on a I don't know. If you know London, you'll know that actually 100 yards in London makes a huge amount of difference because the streets vary dramatically from each other depending on like the housing stock and stuff. So actually, it's geographically very, very close. It's like a 4-minute walk from where I'm now standing. But in terms of the street, it's completely different. It's really nice and quiet and leafy and lovely. So yes, quite exciting.
That sounds such a nice and reliable conversation, too.
Very, very grown up.
It is bloody grown up. It's so grown up.
You've been adulting.
Yeah, I have been adulting. Yeah.
Well, we won't have.
You know what's going to come next?
What?
Suv is suddenly going to discuss. The Suvette is suddenly going to discuss the C word.
No, that won't be happening. Absolutely, no way. If that happens, I will. What's the phrase?
Remember, you're being recorded here, Suv.
Tie my tubes. That's what I'll do. Legit. No, she's aware that the continuation of this relationship is contingent upon the absence of children.
Okay, on that note, let's move over quickly to Shan.
Well, last week I was on holiday in a nice little cottage in the Cotswolds. So had a nice little time walking around Bourton on the Water, went to Blenheim Palace, and enjoying the UK electric vehicle charging infrastructure for the first time.
Oh right, how bad was it then? Was it?
Supermarkets are your friend, because if you go to most co-ops, Aldi's and Morrison's, they pretty much all have chargers on site, which are like free, mostly, so you can park, do your shopping, and when you come out, you've got the equivalent of a car full of petrol.
Hey, not bad.
So yes, it was a bit damp towards the end of the week, but you kind of expect it really. So, but we came away realizing our best sort of holiday we prefer is one where you don't stay in one place too long and you just kind of choose a direction and see what's there, and then stop when you feel tired, and then choose another direction, see what's there, and like that. So in a week or so's time, we're off on a touring holiday. Unsure yet whether we are going to France or not. It depends on what the COVID situation is like in France. But we definitely want to find a place and go somewhere and come back. So it's more like the equivalent of exploration in Elite, really. We're going with hundreds of thousands of people who've gone before, but it'll be unique for us.
Ben, what have you been up to?
Oh, I got during LaveCon, I went off and I was very lucky and I won the photo competition that Cover Art were doing. And my lovely, shiny Bose Bluetooth speakers arrived. So thank you very much to them. Oh, and I got a couple of pens as well. So that was nice too. I'm going to bribe my wife with one of my pens because she likes pens, even if she's not an elite dangerous person.
That's such a romantic gift.
Hey,
Here you go, dear. Here's a pen.
My wife has a thing for pens. I had a beautiful World of Warcraft pen that I loved, and she claimed it. I've had several Frontier pens from Frontier. They've been claimed. I've had several just normal 19-pence biros. They too have been claimed. I'm just going to give her a pen and hide the rest. It's easier. I'm just accept reality here.
The only other people I know who are more excited about pens are children in Africa, which if you give them pens and sweets, think you're the best person in the world ever.
The things are even better if you turn up having gone to the Manchester United fan store and dropped off a whole load of Manchester United pens, especially around Kenya. For some reason, everyone goes mad for them.
Oh, that's true though, isn't it? Because
of course it's true.
Well, no, because apparently Manchester United supporters don't actually live in Manchester.
I'm not saying anything to that, because I do know a couple of Manchester United supporters in Manchester, and and they also listen to the show. So if I say anything, I will just get complete and utter grief next time I see them.
Yeah, I've been doing that, and apart from that, I've been playing various games that have got crossplay on them, because crossplay is a good thing, and we like crossplay, and we like being able to play with PC gamers and Xbox gamers and even Wii Switch gamers or Nintendo Switch gamers, whatever they are. So I've been playing Minecraft and Nomansky.
Yeah,
Nomansky.
Sounds very Russian.
Possibly, yeah. But they're both. I mean, they're both games I'm able to play with my kid. Although I did find that Nomansky might be working as a gateway drug for my son, because he's enjoying that, and he was asking me about Odyssey. He was asking if we were going to get base building in Odyssey. I was like, no, we're not. But this is what we have already. We might be getting other things we just don't know yet. And he's like, well, if I'm able to buy a base and customize it, I'm all over that. So, might be a bit of a gateway drug. We'll see.
Well, you can buy a fleet carrier and customize it.
No, but I think one of the things he wants is, he wants the ability to basically walk around his fleet carrier and put in a goldfish bowl and things.
Need that fish tank.
Yeah, we need that fish tank and, Aisling Duval bed cover and things like that.
Okay then, Mac. Welcome back to the show. What have you been up to for the last week?
Well, it's been a bit hectic, really. I've for my sins, unfortunately, I'm in a glider club here, and our engineering officer, our glider inspector, unfortunately had a heart attack over the winter and died. So it's been thrust upon me, not entirely unwillingly, of course. It's actually quite enjoyable. I'm actually becoming a glider inspector. So I've done the courses with the BGA. I just did the human factors a couple of weeks ago, which due to COVID is all being done over Zoom and all that, or Microsoft Teams as we did the last one. I have one more stage to do, and then I can actually start signing stuff up, which is kind of terrifying, really, because you think, I'm saying this thing is airworthy and somebody else's backside is in it. So I just hope I'm right, really.
If I was your boss and you were a trainee, I would get you to test fly everything you inspected.
Well, I would anyway. I do. I also do that with power flying. We have. I take the plane we tow the gliders with. We do its annual inspection in England in normal times, and the first thing I do when we got done with the maintenance is I get in it and do a test flight. So yeah, it is. I think anyone who anybody who maintains anything like that has to be prepared to eat their own dog food, as it were. So
For own
yeah.
daisies.
So anyway, that's all good fun. So yeah, and gaming wise, yeah, I've been doing a bit more StarCraft. I've hit the wall again. I always do that. I start improving and then I hit the wall, about Platinum 1 or something like that. But I did have a really good game the other day, which and there's a guy who casts games who's got a YouTube channel, Falcon Paladin. So I sent it to him. So, and because I'm one of his patrons, he'll actually cast it. So if you watch his channel, you might see my game soon. It was a Protoss versus Zerg, and it was because the trouble is with the mid-rank madness kind of level in StarCraft. What tends to happen is each player sits there in their own base, building up a huge army, and then there's just one massive battle in the middle, and that's it. You know, one person wins and the other person loses, and that's it. It all comes down to one gigantic battle because everybody just kind of sits and does nothing. But this one actually had lots of poking and prodding from both sides, so is actually sort of I think it was that's why I sent it in, because I think it's one of the better quality games I've had. It was one of the more memorable games anyway. Anyway, in this universe, I have
quick question, Mac, actually,
Yes.
about gliding.
Yes.
What's the ratio of failed gliders to successful gliders when you give them their equivalent of an MOT, I guess?
Well, the Club 2-seater which you're working on now just failed because we found a rattle in the tailplane. So,
So someone threw it out, I'm assuming.
so what we're having to...
Oh, come on! Nothing for
What?
that!
What?
Nothing for people throwing the rattle out? Nothing?
No.
What's
No.
that joke?
No.
Anyway,
Anyway,
yes.
sorry.
Yes, it was rattling.
So you find an issue like that, and then you fix it and inspect it, and there's a worksheet. There's a bunch of paperwork that goes along with it, because of course it's all this comes from EASA, the European Aviation Safety Agency. So of course there is a colossal mountain of paperwork. So there'll be all that. What we got now, we've actually got a little endoscope thing with a camera on it, which makes inspecting the insides of structures like that a bit easier, because you can poke the camera inside and have a good look around. So we could actually see it was a piece of wood that had come unglued from. So this glider is basically it's wood structure. So it looks like it's a stiffener somewhere in there. So we'll have to drill a bigger hole to actually do the repair and then repair the skin. But yeah, it's you do find things from time to time, and there's always the usual
Which I guess
maintenance
is the whole point
items.
of it.
So yeah, there's the usual maintenance items like going around greasing everything and all that kind of jazz.
Probably
Well, it's just a Saturday night, isn't it?
Well, yeah.
Probably my favourite glider story was about the Colditz Cock, which was the name for the glider built in secret by British POWs in an attempt to fly from the roof of Colditz over the walls and into the woods. Unfortunately, they were liberated before ever trying it.
Yes. I have to cut that story. I haven't heard that one.
But apparently, they remade it. Someone got the plans and stuff and made it, and it actually would have worked.
Cool. Sounds good. Anyway,
Yes.
in game. Continue on in game. I am still on the Eastern Promise expedition. I have just arrived after almost falling into the jet cone of a white dwarf and ending it all rather in a little sad little explosion. I managed to avoid that fate. I have just arrived at GCRV 6807. So I'm nowhere near the orange sidewinder, but I am in game.
Cool. Excellent. Let's see, what have I been up to for the last week? Unfortunately, because I've got family members who have been ill, I've not been able to play much Elite. I did manage to get a couple of hours in last night, got quite a few 100 tons of low temperature diamonds. However, one thing that I did play, well, now that I've got the Vive, is that I did try out No Man's Sky in VR for the first time. And I must admit that I know that Shan was asking about this, but if you want that feeling of standing on an alien planet and looking up, it does a good job of that. It really does. The running around the planet in VR is really quite breathtaking. I'm not really all that happy with the flight.
How is the vomit mechanics?
Well,
when you're
if you
running
use,
around?
you see, this is the thing. I think that I'm using the teleport method, and that's
Okay.
manageable. But I
What
can
about the running around method?
that does cause me to feel a little bit vomity.
How do jetpacks work? Are they all right with that?
Yeah, the jetpacks are okay actually. I must admit the jetpacks are okay. It's the actual physical. Well, you don't physically walk, but the walking about is a little bit past me. That I hope I've got a bucket underneath me. But if you're using the teleport method, it really does work quite well.
Obviously, I would imagine if Elite ever gets VR support for Odyssey, I can't see them allowing you to teleport from A to B to C, and in Flatland, I'm just pressing WSAD.
Yeah,
and that's why I'm wondering how the WSAD kind of walkie bits rather than magic space teleporters.
Yeah, that's the one thing that does concern me about VR in Elite Dangerous. If they do put it into Odyssey, is how do you mesh the people who are in Pancake Land, as all of a sudden people like to call it, as opposed to people who are in VR? Because the control methods, to get a control method that doesn't make your stomach turn head over heels when you're walking around, it's going to be difficult. But then it's got to be compatible with whatever anybody else is using.
Don't you just let people in Flatland do the same thing?
You get people.
God, I hope not. What about immersion?
Exactly.
But some of us have the heart and stomach of a concrete elephant and can do WASD in VR just fine.
Well, lucky, good for you, but I'm not.
I think it takes some practice.
It takes a practice and a mop and a bucket next to you. The acclimatization will take a while. So yeah, that's been me for the last week. Right. Well, we'll quickly move on. Now, development.
Are we going to let Cal have a bathroom update?
He says he hasn't done anything.
There's been no update to the bathroom.
Nothing's been done, and he's recovering from LaveCon. So give the guy a break.
It wasn't me who wants to know. I'm sure people were on tenterhooks, hoping like news about Odyssey to hear about Cal's bathroom.
Well, judging by the chat room, I don't think people are interested. So moving. Shall we move on then? Now we have a patch coming tomorrow. It was announced last week. They said the patch notes will be out on Monday, and we've had a couple of updates of about things since then. There are three main headline fixes that have gone in this time. There is an issue which allowed launching a fighter to restore subsurface deposits on asteroids. That has been fixed in this patch. Didn't they say that had been fixed in the previous patch?
I
No?
thought they did. I was kind of surprised when I read that because I was thinking, I'm sure they've already done it, but I guess not.
Right. Hang on. Sorry, I'm sneezing in the background here, so I thought I'd mute myself so that I didn't deafen everybody.
Just be that they thought they'd fixed it and they haven't actually fixed it.
Yeah. So that's an interesting one for us to test. I must admit, I never knew about this exploit. So otherwise, well, I think it's too easy to mine anyway. But I guess some people are just
You know,
using it.
after mining for my carrier, I haven't been back to a diamond mine. After mining for my carrier,
Mm.
I do not want to see the inside of another diamond mine this year,
Right.
probably into next year.
These
Sod how much money it's making. I ain't doing it.
the second item is a little bit more interesting. It says a bug with the material distribution in overlapping hotspots has been fixed, and hotspots themselves have now been rebalanced. The effect that each hotspot has the base of a rarity of a commodity has been doubled, but to counter this, hotspots in the same type which overlap will be less effective. Now, the aim of these changes is to reduce the massive impact of overlapping hotspots, while still ensuring they provide higher yield than non-overlapping hotspots.
So basically, the quad hotspot is now as good as a triple hotspot.
Well, we don't know. It could be that any overlap is just
I think
the
you miss
same.
the irony in that statement, Colin.
The what?
I think you miss the irony and the sarcasm in that statement. It's like not only has the horse bolted, it's in the next field, pregnant with other horses, and there's now a great grandparent horse. It's just, honestly, sorry, I'll get off my soapbox about it. Carry on.
Yeah, well, we'll have plenty to discuss on a similar topic later in the show, I'm quite sure. Because, yeah,
Nay.
this... Nay. Dear.
Give me a sugar
Next,
lump and I'll be all right.
yeah, why the long face? The third thing is that they've just announced another bug fix about the demand property in the markets not being used properly if factions have a BSG state. Now that says to me BGS, yeah, okay, the BGS state. So that means that if a faction, the ruling faction, has any form of BGS state, sort of whether it's in boom, bust, war, whatever, it means that the demand for commodities is not being applied properly. So if you oversupply a certain commodity, that the demand's not dropping. So they said they've fixed that. That I thought was quite interesting, because it just implied that the demand has not been working as it should have been.
How does that then affect? Because I at the moment, demand is driven by whose carrier is selling what. So how is that? Does that affect carrier?
No, it only
Prices?
affects market prices. So effectively, to
But
give you an
the price you can buy and sell, though,
yeah, that's
the price you
based
can
on the
buy it is
demand.
determined. Yeah.
So what's happening is that if the lead faction BGS state is not none, then the demand is not going down when it should. So if you turn up with 10,000 tons of gold, drop off 10,000 tons of gold, the demand is supposed to drop, but it's not doing that. Am I not making that clear?
There you are. Sorry, I was just adding another horse to the field.
Oh. Yeah,
It's
I
'cause
think it makes sense, and it corresponds with the behavior we've been seeing, because we've been seeing people flying out there with 1,000, 10. Well, we've been seeing like individual commanders have been out mining, and they've got like 700 diamonds in their Corvette or whatever, or their cutter.
Mm-hmm.
Then they'll take that over to. They'll jump in a fleet carrier, go over to the most recent sort of current selling location, which is usually a station that's in boom, and then they sell everything at max price. And yeah, according to in theory, you should be selling, but that demand should be plummeting depending on how many you're selling.
Yeah, and actually, it is a problem with low temperature diamonds. So they've specifically highlighted that it's the low temperature diamonds demand is not being applied properly.
And that raises the question: why the heck do they have a specific thing for low temperature diamonds, as opposed to for this is this thing's price range? Why is it a special case rather than everyone else?
And why did it take them 2.5 years to notice?
Well, there are a couple of known issues about this patch, which mean that some things have not been fixed, but they still know about them. One of these is that an issue with partially installed services has been fixed, and also there's the capacity of fleet carriers will display as full. Both of those items they know that there are problems with, and they ask you to bear with them while they carry on trying to fix it. There's also some stability issues when you jump into a system that is mobbed with fleet carriers. They say that they are aware of it and are trying to work on a solution at the moment. I mean, I've had that a couple of times where I've turned up at New Baran, as you like to call it, and all of a sudden, basically, you get the endless hyperspace tunnel of death.
Well, aren't we supposed to be testing that, though? Wasn't there a specific test for how many fleet carriers you can get into a system they wanted us to do in beta?
Yeah, there was a test, and it did pass it. We didn't seem to have that much of a problem. And then all of a sudden, we're now past 10,000 carriers. But in some systems, especially in New Baran, it just swamped. So they're looking into that one. I guess we didn't test it with that many carriers.
Well, I guess the answer is nerf mining rewards, and then all the carriers will go away, and you kind of fix them, really, don't you? So, and I'm not sure. I'm sorry. I'll come on to the main topic, but basically, the way to fix low temperature diamonds and things like that isn't to do some fancy mechanic. It's just simply divide the maximum selling price by 10, and then all of a sudden it goes away. I mean, how hard can it be? Sorry.
Again, we will come back to these kind of things in our main discussion. Moving on from there, what does everybody's impression of this patch? And do you feel it's basically barn door fixing?
Essential bug fixes need to get done. Nothing exciting, but probably a good idea.
I think it's a step in the right direction. Certainly,
yeah.
I think the issue is probably slightly more complex than just nerf mining. The other.
Oh, it is now. It is now, because if you nerf mining now, people.
Main topic, Shan.
Okay, I'll be good.
Yeah, I'll keep Stum for now then.
I blame Sue.
I blame Sue too.
Yeah, you
I have a small rant prepared for this.
Well, like I said, we would like to save all the rants up for our main topic, Max. So don't worry, you'll be able to unleash soon enough.
No. The trouble is now I've now stoked expectations and got the hype train going. I'm probably everybody's gonna be disappointed now. It's like an Elite Dangerous release.
Right. Well, moving on so that we'll move on quickly so that your fires will remain stoked. We have a few in-game events happening this week. We do have to point out that all these events are really player-driven. There isn't any new Galnet news. There's no community goals, and there probably won't be for quite a while, from what we understand. But moving on, we have the Turning the Wheel event. Now, this is the Dark Wheel expanding. They've won an invasion war in Annie and Wu. Okay, that's a decent attempt, I suppose. And they've organised a war of all of the factions in that system, which enable them to leap to second place. I must admit, if they are trying to get to Sol and to Lave, which I do believe is the intention, that is going to take an absolute age.
Yep.
So it's yes.
It's
So
a long-term goal, definitely.
Yeah. So the Dark Wheel is expanding, and they're hoping to expand inside any Anui. I guess that's number 2, which will take them within 10 light years of Sol, and they might be able to go expanding into Sol. Now that is something interesting. I don't think is any other outside factions able to expand into Sol.
I don't.
Sol is
so.
theoretically locked, as far as I'm aware. So, yeah, and am I right in thinking is Sol and a few other systems are basically meant to be BGS locked?
Anything permit locked, minor factions from outside a permit locked system cannot expand into a permit lock system. That wasn't the case at the game launch, because there is one player minor faction that did expand into Shinrata Desra, but since then, since I don't remember which patch, but it was quite a long time ago. But basically, you won't expand into a permit lock system.
Gotcha.
But I think from the Turning the Wheel point of view, their theory is you don't necessarily have to get into Sol, but if you're in the area, perhaps something will happen.
Well, I'm afraid to say for the Lave Radio network, it might be quite interesting, because they have one second expansion, which is heading towards us. It looks like the Dark Wheel are going to try and work its way to Lave, and then obviously they say they'll have to take over Lave if they want to test this theory they've got.
Well, big BGS shifts in Lave have never been controversial, so...
Yeah.
The forum thread itself is now on page 51, apparently.
I was going to say something and I can't remember what it was now.
I'm sorry. Did I interrupt your train of thought?
You completely did, yeah. Don't matter. You're right. It'll come back to me in about 10 minutes' time.
Okay. Well, we hope that comes along soon. In other news...
hang on, Colin. We're getting an update from Kai.
Oh, okay.
Kai said, I don't actually think they need... I might be wrong here, and Kyle hopefully can correct us. I don't think they need to take over. And yeah, they're saying that several times. They don't need to take over the system. They just want to get their name on the board, shall we say, there.
Right, gotcha.
So
I
think that's the case.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, but there's how many non-native factions are there in Lave that you can kick out? Because to let them
who's
in,
Lave? We've got Lave Radio Network, Workers of Lave for Liberals, Aurove Universal.
Yeah, they're non-native. You can kick those out.
Lave Fortune, they're native. Lave Inc., Defence Party Lave, Lave Jet Family. So the only non-native is Aurove.
The Alliance.
No, they are federal.
Oh, that's too bad.
One thing that's what I remember I was going to ask now, though, was because the Dark Wheel is not a player faction, could it potentially move into a permit lock system.
I'm not sure there is technically any difference between a player and a non-player faction. The mechanics, I think, work the same for all of them. A player faction just has a bit more of a description attached to it, and I guess there's some people have their squadrons attached to it as well. But I think as far as BGS mechanics is concerned, they're the same.
Player factions
Apparently,
they don't have different descriptions. It's the systems that have the descriptions. It's actually
Right.
and it's actually not even correct. The systems should be description. The system description should describe the system itself, not the controlling faction, because that changes. But Frontier have allowed us to name to describe systems, which is a little bit risky because you're controlling your faction could be booted out, and then the system description would be wrong. In mechanically, PMFs are no different from regular factions.
Yeah. Grant is saying that he actually really wants the Dark Wheel to take over Lave, burn the radio station to the ground,
Right.
sacrifice Father to Sol, keep Ben tied up, and gagged, apparently.
Oh,
Is this some weird psycho cow fetish we've tapped into?
Possibly.
I'm a bit concerned.
I'm thinking that scene out of Pulp Fiction now.
What, of Fozzer in a gimp suit?
Yeah.
Bring out the gimp.
Okay, let's move on here before it gets even weirder. Operation
Grant, can we get the Onion Head song for our adverts, please?
Because I think he's on some. Anyway, Operation Ida, they are still working on Renidoc in HIP 2843. There's quite a lot of there to shift, but they are making progress. And in other news, Operation the Anti-Xenu Initiative are working on their own player CG called the Art of War. They have 2 remaining goals. They've managed to get 10 out of 12 done. There are, as of the 10th of July, there are 8,250 Thargoid hearts and 164 Thargoid probes. If you can deliver these to the Astras, if you deliver a Thargoid heart, you will get a decal for taking part. The closing date for this is the 20th of August. So if you... Actually, I think that's about the only thing you can use Thargoid hearts for, isn't it?
You get bobblehead.
Oh, can you not get a bobblehead with Thargoid hearts too? I love. Does anyone else love? You go off and kill a Thargoid, get its heart, and turn it into some cosmetic item.
It's so grisly. It's so grisly.
It's a bit like cutting off bad guys' ears and wearing them as a necklace, really, isn't it?
Yep. Some of my favourite necklaces are made up of bad guys' ears.
Oh, okay.
I'm good, guys.
I actually, as a fresh idea, I actually like. I actually like, but because you think about it, all the other cosmetics in the game, pretty much, you can buy with arcs.
Yeah.
And the Thargoid heart, the bobblehead and stuff, is the only one you actually need to learn to play to get. And I think there should be more rewards like that, where you have to do an in-game achievement. I don't know, solo a Hydra for 2 bobbleheads or something. Yeah, that sort of effort that shows that this person has achieved whatever in the game. Because at one point, Frontier was talking about a decal for people who made it to Sag-I, weren't they, and to Beagle Point.
Well, yeah, I mean, it did seem that you got that kind of thing with the interstellar initiatives. But of course, since the interstellar initiatives are no more, just leave that one there. I think
we did get decals for it going on Distant Worlds 1 and 2.
We did.
And Canon have got one as well. Sag-I have asked for one several times and never got one, despite the fact that our logo is awesome.
And it'd make a great decal. It's just perfect for a decal.
Yeah, and it was actually designed by somebody who worked at Frontier. Not at the time. It was designed by somebody before they joined Frontier. But yeah, it was designed by a Frontier employee, although he doesn't work there anymore.
So what was the decal like? Because when you say a SAG eye, I kind of like imagine like the Illuminati eye instead of or something.
Are you not familiar with the SAG-eye logo?
It's very similar to the Galnet logo, I think.
It's a swirly. It could either be an eye or a galaxy viewed sort of in profile.
Yeah.
I mean, there was a there wasn't any newsletter this week, but there was some new decals and things, paint jobs rather, put in. So
Are they pretty paint jobs, or are they just meh paint jobs?
I think they're just meh. They're not as good as the Osiris ones that came out not so long back.
They were
And
nice.
They were nice, but yeah, I haven't seen it. Mostly, I think the T9 and the T6 were done this week. Turbulence yellow and Crossfire brown. So that's an unfortunate name, isn't it? Crossfire brown. Anyway,
it's an amusing name for the paint job of something that doesn't really look like it would go very fast.
So yeah, so all we've had so far has been a store update. So what we'll do is, before Shan and Mac unleash, I would like to take an advert break just for everybody to take stock.
Choose life, choose a ship, choose a career, choose a cargo, choose a fucking big ship, choose palladium, gold and electrical tin openers. Choose good health, low cholesterol and ship insurance, choose fixed interest loan repayments, choose a space station, choose your friends. Choose leisure wear and matching luggage, choose a paint job and hire purchase in a range of fucking colours. Choose decals, exploration, and wondering where the fuck you are on a Sunday morning. Choose sitting in that chair, running mind-numbing, spirit-crushing trade routes, stuffing fucking junk food in your mouth. And choose rotting away at the end of it all, pissing your last in the void with no one out there to hear you, bury or do anything as you drift away in cold space. Until some fucker comes along to steal your ship, your cargo, and your clothes, leaving your bones floating out in space. Choose your future. Choose life. But why would I want to do a thing like that? I choose not to choose life. I chose something else. And the reasons? There are no reasons. Who needs reasons when you've got onion head?
In-system travel? Sometimes it takes so long. I have tools for all kinds of circumstances on my ship. But The one thing I don't have a tool for is uneven tan lines. I just want to look like 1,000,000 credits. But when you're living for days on a ship with processed and filtered air, it really dries out your skin. I use Better Hope Goldening Tan Cream. It just boosts your confidence. I don't believe that beauty is only skin deep, but now I really do look like 1,000,000 credits. Even my friends mistook me for a genuine gold skin.
Jameson and James. Upgrades and services for your body.
And welcome back. We have an interesting discussion, obviously with a lot of pent-up frustration in this for you this week. It comes under the title Normalising Incomes. For example, if 1 hour of mining gets you 10 million credits, does that mean that 1 hour of trading, Xeno initiative, etc., should that also pay out 10 million? Now, first of all, we'll just go quickly around the group. Now, does anybody think that's not a good idea?
Yes.
Okay, we'll come back to that in a second, because I also agree with you on that one.
Yes, I think that's not a good idea as well.
The second question is, should we have some activities that have a higher potential, they have the potential for higher earning power rather than others? Obviously, I'm going to say yes to that one, but...
Yes.
Now, I'm going to let Mac go first, because this is the kind of thing that we're ready to discuss, isn't it? The fact that everybody's mining at the moment, and that seems to be the only way to make money.
Yes. Everybody has been mining forever and ever. When did core mining go in? It was about
It was beyond
over 18
update.
months ago. Yeah, it was.
Yeah.
It's a long, and mining has been super profitable ever since then. It's not so much of a gold rush as a gold saunter. It's gold rush. I think there should be gold rushes. Gold rushes are often fun mechanics. It gets people into the game. It gets people to gather around certain systems. And I think community goals are supposed to be some kind of gold rushy things, to get people into. And anybody who mined at Baran, you knew there was loads of stuff going on in system chat, and it was quite good fun. But the trouble is, when it's one activity only for so long, it's just.
It destroys the fabric of the game, because everybody does mining to get their big shiny, and then the rest of the game is ignored.
Yeah, exactly. So what there needs to be, what I think there should be, is and I think I've said this somewhere else before. I'm sure I have. They've got there is a BGS. There's all these states, and they could be made use of. Perhaps a super state that spawns a gold rush, but basically have a gold rush of some kind in the game at all times. But it changes where the gold rush is, changes what the gold rush is, changes. So sometimes, it might be mining, but eventually, whatever you're mining, the demand gets satisfied. So it just auto nerfs. It doesn't need any action of the devs. Just satisfying. You think all the low temperature diamonds. People have low temperature diamond encrusted spaceships by now. I mean, the demand must be satisfied. So have those, basically have a gold rush last, I know, some period of time. That's up to the game designers, but have some relatively short period of time. And then the overarching system behind the BGS can detect that gold rush has gone away, and look for perhaps candidate systems to spawn a new gold rush, and that could be combat related. For instance, it could be a particularly notorious family of pirates from a nearby non-player faction invades a system, and then you have a gold rush slaughtering these guys. But combat-based gold rush, or a passenger-based one, or a mission-running one, or a trade one, or whatever. Yeah, there's about a dozen different base types of gold rush you can have, but sort of make them move around, and once whatever has satisfied that gold rush satisfied it, then it goes away and the BGS looks for something new. So instead of just equalizing everything so everything pays roughly the same per hour, you have gold rushes, but you make sure they keep moving on. And it'll also add another gameplay element, because there are people who like to hunt these things down. So there'll be people who perhaps look to influence the BGS to spawn a certain kind of gold rush next or whatever, and it brings out other opportunities for various gameplay elements and all that. So yeah, I think just equalizing the credits per hour is just, I don't know,
it seems a bit of a blunt instrument, doesn't it?
Yeah, it just seems like the easy way. It seems like a very unsatisfying way out of it, when we obviously do have some kind of gold rush mechanic in there. But the trouble is, it's kind of got locked on. It's like it's got hysteresis. It's locked in this one thing and won't ever budge. So anyway, that's my little rant. So whoever's next in line to rant can now rant on.
Okay, this is going to be Sean. Everybody, brace yourselves.
Horses.
Yeah, exactly. I agree with what Max just said. But I would say it's too late to do anything about it now. And if I can be completely frank and open about it, it appears to me, my personal opinion, not that of Lave Radio or anyone I know, it appears to my opinion that no one at Frontier had the balls to do anything about it. And the only way to fix the economy now is to take serious amounts of mind credits away from people, because the state of neglect it's got into has done as much, if not more, damage to the game than engineering.
Now, this is okay. Sovereign, you're next.
Yeah, I think I agree that with Mac's point that that you do actually that just nerfs and hard balances and everything wouldn't be the full solution. I think it might be part of a solution, because you would have because it wouldn't funnel everybody into the same activity. But I think the other thing is that there are gold rushes and there are gold rushes. Like there are gold rushes in that that give an egregious amount of money for something which isn't that fun and isn't intended. And then there are gold rushes which are legitimate activity, which give a decent amount of money, more than is comparable elsewhere. And the latter, I think, aren't bad things. And actually, if you have, as Max said, if you had sort of CGs and things that fulfilled the role of the latter and were just the exciting way to make money this week, and that they rotated through different things, like 1 week it might be piracy because of something. As long as the numbers involved aren't game breaking, that would actually be really fun. That would be really varied. I'd really enjoy that.
Okay,
it would require a bit more active management, though.
Okay, back to you, Sean, and then we'll go to Ben.
Yeah, because I said earlier that certain activities should pay different rates, so to be more, to be less communist, for example. the sorts of things it should be, the skill level and risk should be the determinant as to the amount an activity pays. So, for example, people say, well, exploration should have higher payouts. Well, yes, it should because it takes longer, but the risk is less than, say, combat in a house res, because you can max your ship out with shields in a house res and semi-AFK shooting things. So the risk and skill need to be the determining factor as to what pays out. But I think maybe the question is in itself makes an assumption that credits are now the de facto way of measuring progress. And I sincerely think they're not, because there are other ways of determining progress than numbers going up. However, by design choices and the way they communicated and staggered the rewards, Frontier have made credits the main determining factor of progress. And I think that is another thing that needs to be looked at, is our whole perception of what is rewarding in game needs to be shifted.
Okay. Ben. Ben?
It does help if I unmute my microphone, doesn't it? Yeah,
Every time.
Oh, I'm busy typing away to Alan about his book, which is awesome, and it's been getting some really great reviews, okay?
Okay.
You didn't want me hearing me going click, 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 click.
Yes.
But yes, Alan's got a new book out. It's getting some great reviews. Read it when you can. So there, Alan gets a free pluggity-plug. Anyway, I do feel that the reward you get should be worth your time, sort of times your risk. I've long felt that, and we just don't get that in Elite, sadly. But one of the things that I keep hearing, and I keep hearing it from Frontier as well, is like, we added this in as a special case to do this, and we added this in as a special case to do this, and we added this in as a special case to do this. It's no chuffing wonder nothing works.
Can you explain what you mean by these special cases?
So,
Can you give an example or two?
Okay, as an example or two, we were talking about low temperature diamonds earlier. Yeah, low temperature diamonds, you were saying, have got a special. There's special mechanics that go off and check: are they selling low temperature diamonds or are they selling void opals? And if they are, then when they go off and sell their 10 bazillion void opals, well, tough, they're getting the shaft, because they're not allowed to sell 10 bazillion or void opals, and we're just going to take away half their money. Whereas if they're selling 10 bazillion low temperature diamonds, that's okay. It should be the same. All bulk commodities should essentially be the same. You're right there, Colin. So if you're doing bulk trading, all bulk commodities should be handled the same. And yes, this should definitely be, the price point should be manipulated based on the state of the system, the demand of the system, the amount that you're selling. It is a derived amount rather than we're going off and we're buying low temperature diamonds for 1.6 million. It's, well, at this station, at this moment, this is the case, this, and you're selling this, therefore we'll offer you 1.4 million credits for your full load of diamonds. Thank you very much, sir.
I think what we're seeing, Ben, sorry.
But it should be the same whether it's low temperature diamond. It should be the same for all commodities. Get rid of all the special cases.
Yeah, I agree with that. Completely agree with that.
That's what I mean by the special cases, and just get rid of them all. And it should be the same, obviously, for whether you're bounty hunting, xeno hunting, whatever. Don't make special cases. And then you get to actually, it's one set of decision trees that need to be tested. You're not writing spaghetti code. It just makes everything a lot simpler and a lot more predictable by the devs.
I think
So,
what we're
Shan.
seeing is what happens. I think what we're seeing is what happens when you try and tack on a player-driven economy, i.e., carriers, to a game that was never designed to have it.
But we've been having this since
Not the way
way.
people have been using carriers to dump
No, Shan. People.
billions
The whole
worth.
point of this stuff was that people were using low temperature diamonds to buy their millions. The problem existed before fleet carriers.
Yeah. I'll have to agree with that. The problem seemed to exist when, obviously, when deep core mining came out, people worked out that you can make an awful lot of money off void opals
Void opals.
when you combine it with the EDDB tools and things like that. As soon as you know exactly where the gold rushes are, there isn't that wonderful little bit of surprise like, I've just stumbled across a gold rush. I just happen to have void opals in the back. I'm going to make a lot of money. It was impossible to get that kind of feeling, and that kind of thing had been lost. I do suspect that they have left the low temperature diamonds open so that people can afford fleet carriers, but
I mean, sorry.
Well, just let me finish, but the downside of all this is that it has spoilt the early game, if you like.
What early game? Give it 5 minutes, you're already at endgame.
Exactly. That's my problem, because people are. I mean, in my opinion, as I've said before, I've really enjoyed when you've gone from the Sidewinder up to about the Cobra, and a lot of people are missing that, and you can see that they're missing it because they don't know how to fly anacondas right. And it's easy picking for pirates. But yeah, Shan, we'll go back to you.
We keep circling. Well, I keep circling back in my mind to kind of events. Is that first of all, as I said, it's the now focus of the player base that credits his progression. Because if we could get away from that mindset, then the drive to always mine stuff, the need to do that diminishes. So if there were other reward mechanics that players could, if you like, latch onto that did not involve the creation of credits and that they found as emotionally rewarding, then it kind of lessens the impact, I think, of mining all the time. And
Can I just cover this? Just what you're saying just there. That how about if when you're mining, you get an option of saying, okay, well, you can sell this for 1.6 million credits per ton, or you get 5 arcs per ton.
I don't like the idea of actually selling your stuff directly for arcs, to be honest.
Well, let's say you get
a bit like ISK in Eve.
Maybe, but you kind of get where I'm going with that train of thought. The other thing is you mentioned, Colin, about how carriers are really easy to get. Well, I thought the whole point of pricing at 5 billion was to help make them, if you like, an in quotes prestige item that had the same purpose of, I don't know, legendary armor in a.
Yes, but then everybody went, wah, where's my fleet carrier? I want one too. How dare you go and make it 5 billion?
Well, yeah, but that's tough. If I was kind of
then Frontier bent over, spread their cheeks, and said, "Come on in."
Well, that's right, and that's why I cannot help but lay not the blame, but I cannot help but lay the responsibility for the whole single track mining and everything only at Frontier's door. I can't blame the players because easy money, and if that's being portrayed as the way progression happens, then of course players are going to go to that. So in terms of the main topic about equalising the economy, the only people who can fix it is Frontier, I'm afraid. I don't think the players are able to.
We'll stop you there for a second. Psycho Cow, you've got something to say.
Yeah, it was just really about the concept of having arcs for in-game. Where you specifically do an in-game thing to receive an arcs in return in-game. When we first were chatting about the introduction of arcs, one thing that concerned us was that it would become this in-game currency, as opposed to a reward for in-game actions. It's kind of not really part of the game, and then the interface had it in your face, and then there was feedback, and they took that out. I don't see how they would be able to do something along those lines where you could choose for arcs as a reward in game. It just doesn't work well with the kind of lore or that system being a kind of almost like an award based system on the side that you can use to get skins, which again, you don't buy in game either. You don't like going to the paint shop in game and pick up stuff. So they kind of do need to be separate, but that was just when he said that. I thought, oh no, that I don't see how they could. That would break that fifth wall. It doesn't really exist, but it would break it anyway.
Oh, right. That's a good point, in my opinion. Silverine.
Yeah, I think it's easy to get derailed by the arcs comment. I think that rewarding anything with arcs is a terrible idea because it bridges the gap between real money and game money. But the idea of rewards other than money is uncontroversial. They already do that with missions and things, and that works quite well. I don't see a reason why that couldn't be an option.
I mean, the main reason that I've been a bit miffed about this is because it is the progression that, moving up the ship tree, if you like, does seem to have its sticking points. In the original game, I thought that they got it about right going from Sidewinder to Cobra, but then after you left the Cobra, there were horrible long bits where you were flying around in just an ASP and a T6, or even worse, the T7, just trading and grinding.
Don't you say nothing about the T7? I loved that ship.
Yeah, but
I got
there's a
blown
point
up
when
in
you
one
get
once.
bored of them, and you know that the next ship was too far away, and you just thought, "Oh God, why am I doing this?" That's when the grind really bites.
Okay, so you're doing it wrong if you're grinding then. Yeah, I know when I was, in inverted commas, leveling up, I always had one bulk trader. Well, after I got past the Sidewinder, I had one bulk trader and one multi-role combat-oriented ship. And I used the appropriate ship for doing whatever I fancied.
Well, I mean that's great for you, but at the moment, the main issue was that most new players wouldn't do that. They'd get so far up the tree, and then they'd find themselves in this kind of grind loop, and found it to be the only way to make money. It's the same with the LTDs, but this way they get too much money. Anyway, Shan, back to you.
Yeah, I was about to say, Colin, I think to some respect, and I including myself a little bit, we've all drunk the ships are game progression Kool-Aid. Ships are not game progression; they are tools. And what credits should be is an enabler to allow you to use a particular tool the way you want to use it. So ships are not game progression; they're an enabler, or that's what they should be, in my view, anyway. And we've been fed lines like, oh, the big 3 ships, or the big 4 if you count the Type 10, or this, there is a progression ladder of ships. Well, there isn't. They're tools. They represent your character at the moment in game. So if in MMO terms, a ship is almost like your class in an MMO.
Why do you keep banging this drum, Shan? You're on your own. Nobody agrees with you. Frontier talk about the progression of the ships. They talk about them as in a linear scale. Your experience of ship to ship is most people's lived experience of playing the game. They are most people's short, medium, and long-term goals. Why does it matter so much that they are the way that people track their progress? Why is that thing? Who cares?
Because that then leads to the fixation on credits.
But credits are a way of putting a value around something that should be fun to do on its own. Most video games have some kind of form of in-game money, whether it's, I don't know, whatever that they give you, but the fundamental core gameplay loop isn't supposed to be boring. It's supposed to be fun, and the money that you get is a way of managing your progress beyond that gameplay loop.
So why is it
more
then?
meaning.
So why is it?
So basically, you're saying. So essentially, you're either saying that we need more currencies, which I completely disagree with, or you're saying that the gameplay is boring, which is a very different point.
No, I'm not saying either. I'm asking the question: is why is it most players say, "Oh, I love the game until I got to this X, Y, Z," or when I had a Cobra was when I was happiest, or I love the trip from Sagittarius from Sol to Sag A in a hauler. It's about how we choose to use the tools that creates the fun.
I'm going to completely agree that Shan is right with the credits are an enabler, but I also agree with what I think you're kind of saying, Suv, that your ship is essentially your character at the moment.
Well, no, that's what Shan say. I don't.
Okay, in that case, I agree with Shan twice.
I don't see a problem with ships being viewed as your progress. I do agree that there is arguably a late game fatigue in Elite. I've been playing a lot of Total Warhammer at the moment, and which is one of the best games I've ever played in my life. It is completely bloody brilliant. But that game, both games, Total Warhammer 1 and Total Warhammer 2, suffer from late game fatigue, which is you are one of the 2 or 3 biggest civilizations on the map. You've got all the money, all the armies. You're a bit of a monolith. Nobody can realistically wipe you out. But equally, your roadmap to becoming hegemon and wiping out all the other factions is long and extremely miserable.
A lot of other games like Fallout and things like that.
Yeah,
Fallout, you are essentially god of all the factions.
Yeah, it's definitely a strategy game thing, late game fatigue. But it's and the way that strategy games get around that is by the use of AI directors, they're called, which are so in RimWorld, you'll be familiar with this, Ben. In RimWorld, you have you choose your AI director at the beginning of the game, which is which determines the scale and nature of random events. So you can choose one that throws lots of damaging random events at you. Sorry, it's like like a plague or a volcano or something, or an alien invasion or something that you have to deal with that keep the game interesting right up until the late game. And
they scale as well.
Yeah, so late game fatigue is definitely a thing. It is definitely not a problem that is born out of people viewing their ships as a means of progression. It is a structural problem with game design that requires a completely different set of solutions, I think.
I mean, it's funny that you mentioned that. It's funny.
Keep going, Colin.
I think somebody just dropped out.
Oh, have we lost? No.
I think was it Colin?
we had a Colin.
Am I back?
We have a Colin.
Back.
Right. The point that I was making was that it's ironic that people don't see the ships as progression, because in previous games, that's exactly what they were. The idea in Frontier, the Frontier was to get the biggest ship you could, as well as getting the rank. The idea in Elite itself was, you've got to get your Cobra to be an INS. And
in Elite Dangerous, your goal is to be able to bask in her glory.
Yes, the laudable goal, absolutely.
When I say ships are an enabler and not progression, as you know, I tend to think of games like this in MMO terms. And your ship is I believe, the equivalent of your class.
Yeah, your character, really, isn't it?
So, in an MMO, your character, yes, it may get stronger, or it may have different abilities, but you can't say it's purely progression, because people enjoy mucking about in smaller ships. They enjoy that. If it's all about progression, I don't know. Yes, I may be in a minority, but I just can't help but think people are missing a trick by focusing on ships and credits. And
I do agree with that. I do agree that with the fact that there is no good reason to stay in a Viper beyond hour 10 is probably a structural problem with the game. And actually, there's tons of fun to be had in small ships, and there's not a great deal of incentive to fly them once you. Anyways,
I do feel that they missed a trick, because a suggestion that took David Braben's fancy was that in some missions, a certain ship is required to complete that mission. And it did feel that if that had been implemented, then, people would be trying out the different ships. They wouldn't be this mass rush to get to the biggest, the big three, as everyone keeps on referring to them. It's just it feels, with everybody focusing on the mining, it just feels like the rest of the game doesn't really exist. It's ironic, though, because basically we've now got the highest player numbers we've ever had in the game, according to Steam. So something must be right about it.
I remember David Braben once saying that grind is important, and I remember thinking, "What planet are you on?" But the only way you can, if you are deciding whether to keep the servers running, the only decision that really, the only metric that really matters are how many players are playing and how long are they playing for. And David Braben's comment that grind is important for game design, like, maybe that's right. Maybe the reason that Elite is enjoying such a boom at the moment is because everybody's been given something to just grind at relentlessly.
Well, it's because the game has an easy mode, and people like easy mode, so easy mode attracts players.
Anyway, talking of ship progression, I'm enjoying the hell out of this dolphin. I've been exploring this dolphin since God knows when. I think the expedition, the previous expedition to this one, because this is like part 2, this is the journey home, started in so long ago I can't even remember. I've been in a dolphin the whole thing. And you can have your anaconda. I think the dolphin is one of the best. It's very accessible. I think it's one of the best exploration ships out there. It has a really good fuel scoops fuel quickly. Doesn't go quite as far as an anaconda in a jump, but it's got enough slots that you can do all the exploration stuff in it. So don't get an anaconda when you go exploring. Get a dolphin.
I'm almost going to agree with that. I mean, maybe not the dolphin. That's something I've never really flown a lot of, but I very much agree that just don't get yourself into an anaconda or a cutter and stay there. Change from your cutter back down to a cobra. Change into an asp.
I've actually engineered a cobra as well.
Yeah, and a fully engineered cobra is a thing of beauty.
The only problem I have with the cobra is that the 2 of the hard points don't converge well, and I put the railguns there. I should swap them. I should have the railguns on the close together ones, the beams on the.
I have a fully engineered Cobra 4.
Oh, you are a sick status.
Oh yeah, that's right. Masochism, self-flagellation for the win.
Yeah,
it's a really good mining ship. It is a really good mining ship. It's got more. I think it has. I think this is correct. It has more potential internal space than a keelback, possibly a Type 6, but because it's got lots of quite large internal slots, but it handles not too much more poorly than a Cobra 3.
But
the Cobra 3's got speed though.
Yeah, the Cobra 4 does not have speed.
And maneuverability.
I'm the miner because I don't like mining. So having a small ship for mining is preferable for me because it decreases the time between return trips. And it's brilliant for that. It's really, really good as a miner, and you can see your gubbins. You can see your mining apparatus on the front of the thing because the hard points are visible from the cockpit, which I really like. So it's quite immersive.
That's what I like
Since
about
we're-
the crate as well.
Yes.
Yes, so much.
I can see those railguns beside me, and they go wha-bam, wha-bam in a conflict zone. It's just
Awesome.
electrifying.
Especially in VR. It's so good in
Oh
VR.
yes, in VR, the crate is just it's fantastic.
Mac, have
So
you?
since we sort of agreed that things are out of kilter, what would people do to correct things?
Correct what in terms of the I'm grinding until I can get an anaconda.
Well-
now I'm bored.
That, and how would you move people away from mining 24/7 and into other parts of the game?
It would require more active management, I think, from Frontier, which means that
No,
for example,
the opposite, Suv. Oh, finish what you're saying, and then I'll say why I think the opposite.
so I know what you're going to say, and you think by active management I mean price fixing, but that's not what I mean. I mean, for example, a CG. This week we're going to do something with piracy, and the payouts for piracy will be really high. This week we'll be doing, and that would be something like 150% of normal galactic average earnings, with an optimized ship for a specific task. Next week the CG will be something to do with exploration, and that'll be the gold rush for that week. I do agree that Frontier need to be a bit more laissez-faire about markets, and just I think letting the market self-correct for trade goods would be better than sort of faffing around with specific cases.
Okay, so I would say Frontier should actually almost possibly do the opposite, at least for the base game. And by the base game, I mean everything apart from Frontier injected stuff, basically. So Frontier needs to work out a base credit per hour that all activities should get, assuming that they were all equal risk and reward. And then obviously you then apply a multiplier based on combat maybe gets 1.3 times base, mining gets 0.75, anti-Thargoid gets 2 times base or something. You work at Frontier in their maths, go off and work out things that they feel are fair, fixed price points per hour that they want people to be getting. Then once you've got that worked out, then you go off and you apply all the BGS manipulations to where you're doing things. So there's still a hell of a lot of fluctuation in the galaxy. Obviously, if you're handing in and doing bounty hunting in a system that is is under civil unrest, you're going to get a lot more credits per hour for doing bounty hunting there than you are for going off and delivering let's just say low temperature diamonds for the sake of argument. They probably don't give a shit about your low temperature diamonds. On the other hand, they do want you going out there and hunting pirates. But we've also got to take into account the fact that some people at endgame, in inverted commas, have several bazillion credits. Who knows however many billion. And other people still at the same endgame maybe only have 1 billion or less. And maybe that needs to be dealt with, I don't know. Maybe the codes come along during the Odyssey update and steal all your money so you've got 0 credits or something. And at the same time you go off and do the normalization so that now you get a fair amount of money for bounty hunting, as you would do for bulk trading, as you would do for rare goods, and so on.
Yeah, okay. Mac.
Okay, now here's one that one thing that about the whole mining situation that kind of it feeds into a bit of a bigger thing which I think needs fixing. all these mining systems, Baran, low security. The new Baran is an anarchy, but where are the pirates? You got all these people with holds full of absurdly expensive commodities, and you go into solo mode or whatever. You can fly and sell them with absolute impunity. I think what really another part of this needs to be, wherever there is a gold rush, there needs to, very shortly after gold rush starts, it needs to become a hive of scum and villainy, of engineered the ships you get, the ships you get, like the spec ops in conflict zones, and what's the other ones? When you do like a, not necessarily the ATR, but the what the hell are they called? The ones you do
Pirate
like
incursions.
or there's like missions you get on the mission board, the wing missions, where you get like 4 engineered pirates, which can prove to be quite a challenge when you try and solo them. But it would mean that it would put the risk in there. I mean, because now you've got this activity which is a reward out of all gargantuan proportions, and now if there were these, if this attracted the hive of scum and villainy, then you'd add the risk, and you would have to have a bit of an iron ass. You don't necessarily have to fight, but you can't just go in there in a min-maxed no shield cutter to pick up as much stuff as you want. You do have to consider maybe asking a friend along to join a wing and deal with the pirates or whatever.
That would be really good.
You've got to add the risk to it, and there's no reason why mining this highly profitable mining should be safe. And in general, this is another thing which kind of grinds my gears, is that the security status really doesn't matter. In the original Elite, it did. You fly into an anarchy on the BBC Micro version of Elite without a decent ship, and you'll get blown up. When I started on Elite Dangerous, I selected my first anarchy, and I was all like prepared for it, and like, what's going to happen, and nothing happened. And now I don't even look at the security status. It's just, meh. It's meaningless. So these things need to actually have meaning, and with the amount of computing power we have now, we can also make it somewhat sensitive to what you're doing. So if you're just flying through a system and you've got nothing of value, then you'll get left alone. But if you're full of low temperature diamonds and you go into an anarchy, every pirate within 15 light years should be on you.
Well, that means if it's a populated anarchy, of course. Because that's the thing, because you don't want it set up so that every anarchy you go through, if you've got something valuable, when you're exploring, then
indeed. But if you're 2,000 light years from home, then no. But in a fixed location like the New Baran, that would end up being an exception, because that is definitely not. I mean, okay, there's no stations there, but it's full of ships. But like in Grey EOQ RD-ID 10-2, no, there shouldn't be anything there.
That's one of the things that gets my goat actually the most in the game, is the spawning of pirates, almost seemingly random. So much so that you can find yourself a little hotspot in a mining asteroid field, sit there and mine there, completely undisturbed by anyone, because you're way out in the middle of nowhere. You log off, you log back in. Oh gosh, 2 pirates. How the hell did they find me? You make a jump on your way back to draw and sell your stuff. Oh, here's the big ship you heard about. Heard about from flipping who? Who the hell's talking? Because there's no one else in my ship. I haven't even got any crew, because they can't trust them. They keep selling my information to pirates. So I think if you want to bring that kind of diversity into the game, where you have the anarchies as dangerous areas, you need to have meaningful points at which that information can be garnered. If you're in a station, you take a mission, then it's understandable that someone's been tipped off. If you buy a lot of cargo in a station, that's understandable. Other than that, it has to come from a ship scan of some sort. And if you want to force potential for that, it's time to start using the nav points as they should be, the bits where you are forced to drop in when they exist. So if there's a nav beacon, you drop in there, that forces you to face police and authorities scanning for contraband. That'll force you to have to fight your way past an anarchy, or where all the pirates will be waiting for that fat cow that comes in, and it'll create a real sense of danger. It's a point where you know ships are going to appear, and therefore, if you are going to take on a task where you're pirating, that's where you're going to sit, and it'll make sense, as opposed to waiting for beacons to appear near the star. There's a ship just jumped in now, I'll chase him around in Super Cruise. It doesn't make sense. What are the nav points for? What are they for, those nav beacons? Make them do something special, because in that circumstance, if you land there and you've got a hold full of ice diamonds sitting there, or whatever, low temperature diamonds, I always call them ice diamonds. I don't know why, but I always do. Low temp diamonds in your hull, and you've not been caught, nobody knows you've got it, and you've got another 20 odd jumps to go, and you arrive at that first nav beacon, and there's all these bounty hunters hunting out pirates, and there's a couple of pirates. You are going to sweat buckets out your ass as you try and get as far away as possible, as quickly as possible, evading the scan detected message to try and break that lock in order to get away undisturbed, so that you can continue incognito. And that, I think, would add a whole load of gameplay.
I must admit, I completely agree to that. Shan, what do you think?
I was going to agree with everything Cal just said, really. I'm going to put a however. It's far too late for that. It's people who, if you're sitting there with 50, 100, 200, 1,000 billion credits, you're kind of done, to be honest. And
that's why we want Code to come along and steal all your stuff when Odyssey
it doesn't matter. Well, it doesn't. It's too.
If you walk back into your thing after
if all this stuff had happened, if all this stuff had happened that Colin and Cal was talking about just now, if that had happened when Beyond hit, it would have been brilliant. That would have been the perfect time to introduce that. We've now had 2 years of free money printing, assisted by Frontier's, I won't say neglect, but that's what I mean. And it's too late.
I'm waiting for you to say another word other than neglect here.
It just is. The only way to fix it is to change what motivates a player to play, or take credits away from people. I suggested, semi-seriously, you deduct 1 million credits per turn of mind. If low temperature diamonds are still 1.6 million credits, so you not exactly won't be losing out, but you'll take an awful lot of money out of the economy.
I just love the idea of Code. When Code go off and take, because Code now control Xeons, don't they?
Do they?
So I'm fairly. I think they do. I think, or at least they're wrong about it. Yeah, let Code take over Xeons, and then they just suddenly steal all the money from all the players. I think that would be absolutely hilarious. Although this is
imagine the salt.
I know.
Yeah, this is the same thing that we were discussing a couple of weeks back. This is what would be good for the game, but can you imagine the salt?
I don't think you'd get away with. I don't think you'd get away with taking.
I don't think you would either, but it would be something.
I also agree with Aaron that the Hawk kind of bolted. The economy is something that you get right from the beginning, and you don't screw around with, or you just deal with inflation. Inflation. Go on.
How do you fix it though? If you,
I don't think it's fixable. If you've already got, if people. Like I, for example, have something like 2 billion credits in the game. I think it's not as many as a lot of people. It's in the top 10% comfortably. I am realistically not going to be particularly moved by things like gold rushes because I don't care. I'm not saving up for anything. Really, it's about new players, and the argument is oh well, you're removing the step ladder for new players. New players are going to be punished compared to older ones, and or earlier players, and they won't have the same advantages, and they won't be able to get stuff in the same way. That is a logical fallacy, because actually what you've done is improve the experience for new players, and you've improved it over time. But it is a persuasive argument, and it would persuade Frontier to be timid in their approach.
Well, I must admit, apart from Psycho Cows suggesting that you get spam messages from the Bank of Xeons, and as soon as you click on that, and you lose all your money. Or even worse, about reintroducing Trimbles again that will just basically eat everything, including your bank balance.
Or a massive Thargoid invasion that destroys everybody's fleet carriers.
Ooh, we're back into the salty comments again, aren't we? Or even better, a Thargoid attack that completely destroys Xeons. So that means everybody loses their money, and you've just got what your assets are. Well, and on that note, I think we've finished with this conversation, because we're all in kind of agreement that something needs to be done, but it's also a bit too late to do it. Is that about right? That's the gist I'm getting.
I think broadly. I'm not convinced that something needs to be done, really. I always think that one thing that is true of humans generally all throughout history is that we overprescribe. So the answer to problems we always think is to tear things down and start again, whereas actually tweaking things or regulating things a bit better is often solves the problem. I don't necessarily. I agree that there is an imbalance, and it's not an ideal, and that the economy of elite isn't ideal. I disagree that it's necessarily a huge problem. I actually don't care, and lots of players only really care about their own experience and whether or not other people are richer than them or have had opportunities that they haven't is a pretty academic question, really, if it doesn't impact your experience of playing the game. I'm also not convinced that. I think there's enough that needs to be worried about. And in terms of fixes that would not necessarily solve the problem perfectly, but make it as less of a problem. Simply rebalancing other activities so that they are comparable to mining would achieve we'd all stop complaining if that happened. So it's not necessarily the ideal solution, but it would at least be a solution.
Yeah, but then that throws out the balance for players who are just starting, and they just go straight up to the highest ship again. Yeah,
it would. Yeah, absolutely. I don't really see a problem with that. Given that people are going to complain if they can't do that, I don't really see a particular problem. And it feels like moralizing, basically saying that new players shouldn't be allowed to do that when they vocally say they want to, feels like moralizing hand wringing. If yes, okay, it is broken if a new player can go from 0 to an anaconda in 3 hours. But if that's what they want and it doesn't impact you, why care?
Because we know better, damn it. We had to. Us oldies had to do the grind.
Back in the day, is when we had to walk.
But it's a logical fallacy because it doesn't impact you. It doesn't impact you at all. It's the same for. That's a bit like old people saying, "Oh, it's a travesty. You lot can jet around the world on cheap flights." Back in my day, all I had to do was suck on broken glass. Back in 1912. It's complete nonsense. Somebody else's experience doesn't impact you.
Well, that's the thing. It does, because basically, you've been there for the last 2-3 years grinding to get that A-rated anaconda, and along comes Mr.
your
Newbie.
Experience.
And Mr. Newbie, he's come along and done it in 3 hours.
I don't think that changes your experience. I mean, for those 3 years, you didn't even know that person existed. You might.
How would you feel if you've gone off and spent? You had to spend, because there was no other way of doing it. You spent, say, a whole year grinding to get to elite rank, and then somebody comes along and does this in 48 hours by shooting Thargoids all day long or something.
You just
Would
shrug.
you not?
No, I mean, no, I just shrug. I'm not a child.
I think if you would just think, if you would just shrug, I really think you're in the minority with that. I think you would feel very. You were robbed.
If those hours were fun,
no, but they are taking the mickey out of the work that you had to put in.
It's not
to get
work,
your
though.
rank.
If I considered it was, if I considered it work, I shouldn't have done it. If those hours were fun, then I've got nothing to regret. If they weren't fun, what the hell was I doing playing it anyway?
Right. On that note, we'll just jump in before everything gets a little bit heated again. Okay. Quickly, Mac, last point.
I can defuse this whole heatedness because I have found an ammonia world that is the colour of poo.
Congratulations, Mac. You win the game.
I was just about to say, there's a quote from yes Prime Minister that springs to mind when we're talking about the economy and things like that in Elite, and it goes something like this. Well, we follow the 4-stage strategy. What's this? Standard British response in time of crisis. In stage 1, we say nothing is going to happen. Stage 2, we say something may be about to happen, but we should do nothing about it. In stage 3, we say that, well, maybe we should do something about it, but there's nothing we can do. In stage 4, we say maybe there was something we could have done, but it's too late now.
Isn't that what we said about COVID?
That sounds so familiar about so many things in this country in the last 4 years. Anyway, let us move on from this heated discussion. Community Corner. Now, I do believe, Sovereign, you have something to let us know about Sagittarius Eye.
Yes. So important news from us that doesn't necessarily important for the people involved, but doesn't really impact anybody else. So after 3 years, I am going to I'm not stepping down. I'm taking a step back because I have I've been chief editor of SAG-I since probably since late 2017, late 3303. The magazine was founded by Commander Whitman in the September of 3303, and I took over in, I think, the October or the November. And since then, I've been running it, and it has been an absolute blast. It has been tremendous fun, and I have loved what we've built, and I still love it, and I will continue to love it, and I'm very, very proud of it indeed. However, I now have quite a few publishing projects across a range of different topics, and I also moved from paid employment to freelance work about 18 months ago, which means that you get I don't know if anybody else here is freelance, but you get a much keener sense of of how you're spending your time and its potential and what you should be doing with it. Long story short, I'm now spread very thin. Sagittarius Eye is still one of the most exciting projects to do with Elite Dangerous. It's unique. There's nothing else like that in the Elite community. There aren't any other magazines. It is very special, and it has become clear over the last couple of years that it is also completely owned by the community. I may control it, but that is a temporal thing, and really, Sagittarius Eye is not owned by any one person. It is the product of many, many people, and it belongs to the entire community. So we're at quite an important point for, well, this year is quite an important transition year for Elite, really, and it will prove to be so for Sagittarius Eye as well, because we've been around for quite a long time now. We're considered part of the old guard as far as the community goes, and Elite is obviously moving in an exciting new direction next year, and and I just feel that we need fresh energy and fresh direction and fresh leadership for Sagai. And I am being pulled in too many different directions to be able to give it my to the attention that it deserves. So we've done quite a lot of not just about me, but also lots of other things. We've done quite a lot of soul searching behind the scenes and talking about how we might address Odyssey and all the rest of it. And one thing that's come out of this is that Mack Winston, who is also an inflatable guest on this show, is easily one of the strongest editors we've had at Sagai, and a thoroughly decent and very smart chap. And I've been very lucky to have his enormous help over the last year or so that he's been with Sagai. I'm very lucky that somebody like him is available to help drive Sagai forward. So after talking with him, we have decided that he is going to step up to the position of chief editor of Sagai, and I'm going to step back to a sort of Ben made up the role of alumni editor, which is I guess an analogy might be chairman, CEO, somebody who does absolutely nothing but kind of still holds the reins ever so gently, and is still around to offer advice, and then the other person who is the driving force and in charge and making the decisions. So yeah, and this is a transition that's taking place over this and this month or so. It's we're sort of gradually I'm gradually letting Mac know how we do things, and he's sort of gradually taking over, sort of deciding things and driving things forward, and it's exciting. So I won't be going anywhere. I'm still at Sagai. I will probably always be, and still very keen and happy to help out. But Mac will be the leader of the team henceforth.
Yes,
Welcome back.
Absolutely terrifying. I feel like I'm the new Dread Pirate Roberts.
It's really not. I've probably dropped quite a lot in Mac's lap of late, because I've been like, oh, remember this, and oh, by the way, you're in charge of this, and oh, by the way, this is also your responsibility. It quickly becomes less terrifying.
Yes.
Have you told Mac that he needs to record the titles of all the issue, or not the issues, the stories in the podcast?
Sorry, what?
Have you told Mac that he needs to record the titles of all the articles for the podcast?
No, I haven't, because that is not my bloody responsibility.
Mac, you need to record the titles for all the podcasts.
Right. Yes, I was thinking about it. That people now get to hear my voice on the podcast instead of Souverine's. I've not actually done any of the voicing for the podcast. Is done by, well, you probably, our podcast is becoming increasingly popular, so you've probably heard most of the voices. I think, Ben's obviously on it. I think Kai Zen is one of the people who does the podcasting, who's does Elite Week as well.
Kai's just started as well.
There's a
Commander Witherspoon, Rosetta Stone,
loads of people.
Loads.
12 or 14 voice actors, I think. And
there's a bunch of the Sagai has a bunch of very eager voice actors who are chomping at the bit to do the next one. So we actually have another point of this was to announce the fact that we're going to have an announcement at some point, because we're changing some things with the podcast. So
exciting times.
Keep your ears peeled, eyes peeled, whatever. You know what I mean.
Okay, well, if that's the case, we'll. For those of us that follow Sagai, then I think we've got something new to look forward to. Although there have been requests for centerfolds by some people in the chat room. Don't know who that could be. Anyway, we're going to give our usual shout-outs. So to our sister station, Hutton Orbital Radio, that broadcasts on a Thursday at 8:30. You can tune in at tv.forthemug.com, or if you just want the audio, go to @radio.forthemug.com. For the discerning commander who likes a bit of CQC action, check out the CQC Discord at discord.me/EliteDangerousCQC. That's all one words. And also, I do believe we have a Galnet News by Commander Witherspoon coming up next. I'll take that silence as a yes. But as far as that's concerned, that's it for another episode of Lave Radio. If you'd like to get in touch with the show, you can email info@laveradio.com. Hit us up at facebook.com/laveradio. Tweet us at Lave Radio. You can join our Discord server by going to discord.io/Lave Radio. We have a TeamSpeak server where commanders come to hang out and chat, and you can find that at teamspeak.laveradio.com.
I know it's taken
Do get in
the
touch.
leftist tones of.
What the heck was that?
That was Grant.
That was a grant.
I'm just getting ready.
Well,
I don't have it ready.
Oh no!
It's on its way. It's
I'll
okay.
slow down.
Yeah, just drag it out.
Oh,
Get in touch if.
Colin, I've got some really good news for you. Kaizen is
Okay.
offering to be your very first centerfold for Sagai.
We're doing.
Why is it good? Why is it good news for me? It should be good
Because
news
you
for
said
Matt.
you said it was good news. You said you were wanting centerfolds.
Yeah, we do.
I didn't
video.
say I was. That was suggestions from the chat room, stroke chats
To be honest,
that we've got.
if Kaizen was the centerfold, at least you could make it decent with the staple.
And what do you do with the PDF version?
Oh god, yeah.
Oh yeah, I didn't think that one through. Animated?
Well,
Wee! Sorry.
oh, good grief. I thought we'd been able to get most of the way through, but obviously not. Do get in touch if you have any questions or if there's anything you'd like us to discuss in a future episode. Centerfolds will now be banned. Lave Radio is recorded live on a Tuesday evening at 8:30 British summertime and streamed out at laveradio.com/live. So thanks to Mac, thanks to Sovereign, thanks to Shan, thanks to Ben, and of course special thanks to today's tech specialist PsychoCow. But until next time, commanders, fly safe, and if you can't do that, fly dangerous.
Is your life like this? Sounds like someone having an orange inserted. You need a safe word. Space can be loaded. I'm gonna see the galaxy.
Ah, damn it. No worries, guys. Hold the fort for 2 seconds. I'll be right back.
Your Galnet is important to us. Please hold in a holding pattern and be patient while we crank up the Witherspoon. Thank you. waiting? Why not listen to the audio monologues of Alan Stroud? Available in 15 volumes. If you've got nothing to do for the next 15 years, you might just get through them. New coming out this week. Positivity by Commander Shan. A book on ways to lift your mood and see the best in life. We can now take you back to your regular programming. Thank you, Commanders, for bearing with us in these difficult times, whatever that means.
And now it's time for the mellifluous tones of Commander Witherspoon and his Galnet Digest.
Galnet News Digest, 14th of July, 3306. We read the news so you don't have to. In this week's news, the cloning of Fred blogs. 8 wheels are better than 4. LTD 3 plus 1 times 2 divided by 3. Galnet is gone for good. Turning the dial. A week of disturbing pictures. The cloning of Fred blogs. Brewer Corporation has issued an apology to all its valued customers following an outfitting mix-up. A number of fleet carriers were carrying around partially installed services, which had been paid for but which didn't work. Brewer Corporation has been working tirelessly to resolve this problem, and on Wednesday all the part-installed modules will become properly installed. In order to run these extra facilities, Brewer has provided an additional crew member to all affected carriers. The crew member in question is called Fred Blogs, and there are going to be quite a few of them, all identical. Brewer has not explained how this was achieved. With the newly installed modules, some fleet carriers may now be over capacity until this is rectified by changing the loadout or by selling cargo or reducing open purchase orders. Other commanders may be unable to sell commodities to the affected fleet carrier and will instead get a transaction cancelled message. The company hopes that affected commanders will continue to use Brewer Corporation as their fleet carrier vendor of choice, even if there were a second supplier. Which there isn't. 8 wheels are better than 4. The elite racers have announced a 7-week series of SRV endurance rallies. Starting on the 26th of July, the Sunday evening races will allow racers to compete directly in a first-to-the-finish-line scramble. The first 10 places are awarded points on a sliding scale, with the overall winner decided on the 25th of October. While some of the races are a modest 40 kilometres, the longest is 280 kilometres, which will certainly test the endurance of both the SRVs and their drivers. There are some arcane rules. Only basic fuel synthesis is permitted, and you must be parked under your recalled ship in order to refuel. The only hull repair technique permitted is to recall and board your ship. Blowing up disqualifies you from the current stage, but if there are other stages on the same night, you are permitted to compete in them. Third-party tools are strictly prohibited. The organisers will accept the word of racers that they've abided by the rules. The elite racers are commanders of their word. Competitors must sign up in advance and turn up at the start line on each of the 7 race days in good time before the start, which will be at 17:30 Galactic time. The organisers have been criticised for permitting only users of the PC control system to take part, but have explained that Xbox and PS commanders are unfortunately invisible to the race marshals. LTD 3 plus 1 times 2 divided by 3. There have been some interesting developments this week regarding low-temperature diamonds. There has been a further discovery of an overlapping low-temperature diamond hotspot around Planet 10 of HIP 4351, leading to considerable relief from orbital traffic controllers at existing sites. Some of the key mining sites and all the systems around have been jammed full of fleet carriers, leading to concerns that the carriers may have been unable to maintain a safe 2 meters distance from each other. However, it also turns out that commanders have been misunderstanding how hotspots work. From Wednesday, the doubling or tripling effect of overlapping hotspots will be dramatically reduced, while the yield at the centre of all hotspots will be doubled, meaning that overlapping hotspots won't be quite as special as they used to be, and mining efforts can be spread out over more systems. Fleet carriers both facilitate mining and make mining necessary, and are considered vital to kick-start the economy. Galnet is gone for good. Key members of the community were left reeling after a spokesperson for the Pilots Federation announced that neither Galnet nor community goals were still on the roadmap, or road plan. This was an escalation of the previous position, that they had been temporarily suspended to allow other more important things to happen first. Commander Alec Turner spoke about Galnet's rotting corpse. Rootsrat and Osric were essentially left without words. Stuart GT explained it was a gradual ratcheting up, from no more commander-submitted articles, to a focus only on events affecting commanders, to the stopping of events that Galnet could report on, to a statement saying that all events have been cancelled until fleet carriers arrive, to this most recent statement that Galnet has been stopped indefinitely. However, it may be that the Pilots Federation statement was misunderstood. The spokesperson, Stephen Benedetti, said,
we're looking for some questions. So one question was, what's happening with Galnet? We say this most weeks, but we know it's a really important thing, so I'm more than happy to explain this each time. That Galnet community goals currently are not in our road plan just now, but if that does change, or if we do decide to bring them back in, we will let you know. It's just why you've not seen anything at the moment.
While very eloquent, this statement is open to the alternative interpretation that reviving Galnet and community goals are not planned in the immediate future, but may happen at some point in the future. In the meantime, we will make up the news, so that the Pilots Federation doesn't have to. Turning the dial. Commentators and strategists have expressed concern over the plans of the Turning the Wheel initiative, ostensibly an attempt to big up the Dark Wheel to persuade them to tell us what they know about the mysteries of Raxxla. It seems possible that there may be another darker motive behind the expansion attempt. The next two goals of the campaign are to get the Dark Wheel to expand to a system very close to Sol, and to the Lave system. The closest system to Sol is Alpha Centauri, the home of Hutton Orbital Radio. And of course the Lave system is home to Lave Radio, which is apparently the hottest show this side of DSO. Far from being an attempt to gain information about Raxxla, it seems at least plausible that Turning the Wheel is actually an attempt to take over Hutton Orbital Radio and Lave Radio by stealth, shutting them down and using their transmitters to broadcast non-stop Elite Week. Following the demise of Galnet, can we allow these other news outlets to be shut down in such a cavalier manner? What will Alvin think? What will Commander Edelweiss do with his evenings if he has no show notes to prepare? The charlatans of turning the wheel must be stopped at all costs. A week of disturbing pictures. Commander Vex has discovered a truly unusual life form in the Flyu Groa SO-Z-E0 system this week. It appears to be a mass of tentacles with enormous helmets at the end of each tentacle. In an entirely unrelated vein, Canon Interstellar is attempting to introduce avian unnatural cheese to the galaxy as a rare commodity, created using milk harvested from cockerels. It promises to be worth coming a very long distance to try out. And that's this week's Galnet News. Galnet News, we read the news so you don't have to.